Hey guys, welcome to another ride in the Strugglebus where every wheel is an empty triangle. Today we've got our next game in our Not Another Road to One Done series. And before we jump in, let's answer some important questions. Gabe, are you one done yet? No. Well, did you get us a winning game today? Also no. And I'm getting a little tired of the hurtful questions, guys. Let's get a little more positivity. Anyway, today I am bringing you a game from the Massachusetts Go Association League. And while I did not win this game, it was a close game. Though it's an interesting one because while I was playing the game and afterwards, I thought it was a good game. I thought I played well. Then I reviewed it, took a look with the AI, and I no longer think it's a good game. But we do have some good lessons to go over. So let's take a look, and what I'll do is I'm just going to go through the game and explain what my thoughts were while I was playing, and then we'll go back and take a look, kind of do a post-mortem on the game and what lessons I've learned. So before we get into that, it's important to discuss what my goals are with how I've been playing recently. And the big thing that I'm trying to work on is I typically focus too much on trying to get territory earlier in the game, right? I focused a little too much on like the big territorial moves versus the big moves that make groups stronger or weaker. So I've been trying to focus more on that aspect of, when I get when I have Sente and get to play my big move, focus more on strength rather than just trying to secure points. And also I need to be really focusing on cuts and just how they work in general throughout the game. So a lot of the criticism that I'm going to have, over my play is going to be based on that, and a lot of the decisions that you'll see are going to be based on that. And then one more aspect of what I've been trying to work on is kind of, with that the balance of strength is being okay with leaving one weak group if you get something bigger by playing away, and then dealing with the repercussions later and challenging your opponent to actually punish that weak group that you left behind. So let's jump into the game. So I am white in this game and did my typical 4-4, 3-4 facing, and then I went and approached his 4-4. Pretty typical stuff. We do this Joseki, and then my opponent plays S18, which seems small, and I know that there's going to be a follow-up at S13, and so this is me being willing to leave that weakness behind, and I tanukied and played away. Black then goes after the 3-3. I decide to take the Gote variation, and he does indeed take this peep. So I know that typically connecting here is a little passive, but I was unsure with how S18 changed things. And so I was looking at this and going, these 4 stones are a little smaller than they normally are because of S14. So because of that, I was going to cover. And here we both kind of tricked each other. Again, I looked at these 4 stones and thought, hey, they're not as big as they normally are. I'd rather just get out than get surrounded. And then I go and play a territorial move that I'll get back into when we do our review. And Black extends here to threaten the cut, and I still don't fix the cut and decide to jump out instead. Black leans. I push here because I didn't want to give him forcing moves that would be stronger against this weak group that I've left behind. And then he jumped into the other corner, which I was surprised with. And then he played this, which I was equally surprised with. And so we just went to kill that stone. He just used the Aji that was there to get a bigger corner, which was fine. And I was concerned with a cut here, and I decided to fix that with this, and then also take this to threaten to get into here. And so he connects, and here I thought I was being real clever. Right, this was me trying to find good timing to get this connection here. And so I decided what I was going to do was lean on this corner, play light, and then connect and hopefully be able to go after these stones. And we'll see if we can find the timing to connect, right? If we get something over here, even if we just keep it light, and then we're able to connect, then it's not too bad. Do we connect now? Force him to do something over here? I feel like the timing's probably right now. And that's kind of where the game goes for a long while now, is me attempting to get some kind of profit by attacking these stones. And so black comes here to fix, and I kick and jump out to kind of continue, not continue, but I want to keep pressure on this group, stay ahead of them, and hopefully we can turn that into some profit on the left side. That was the intent here. He peeps, I block to keep his group separated, and then I connect because, again, I'm trying to keep pressure on this group. So then we jump out for a bit. He threatens to cut, I connect, he peeps, I connect, and jumps out again. Here I do a knight's move since we're close enough to the thickness that I can be a little more aggressive and not be as concerned with this cut because it's going to be running right towards my wall. And he goes and takes this big point. But my whole plan was to go after this group, and so that is what I'm going to continue doing for a bit. And then I decide, okay, I kind of change course a little bit and go, let's shore up something here, because I didn't think that T7 was a great move to be playing here.
Okay, are we going to play first line move right now? I don't think we are, because we play here, you can just play something up here and live pretty easy.
And so we get this exchange, and he attaches up top. I extend, he comes here. I'm just trying to make shape to, again, not get cut off and get the left area. And then I play what has got to be the best move of the game, T7. I know you guys, you love it. It's a great move, and I know you're asking, like, Gabe, how can you not be one down when you're playing amazing moves like these? And I also don't know.
Okay, are we going to play first line move right now? I don't think we are, because we play here, you can just play something up here and live pretty easy.
I actually do know. Anyway, so here, black, obviously, I've fully cut him off, so he's going to go get strength.
Because we play here, you can just play something up here and live pretty easy.
And I kind of try to poke in a little bit while getting shape myself and making sure that my group is nice and alive. And unfortunately, I let him get in. I thought that I hadn't given this enough thought. I was like, oh, he'll go and protect, and then I'll be able to close this off. But unfortunately, he got the step ahead, and I decided to block. And here, the wheels fell off a little bit. We escaped it, but there's some cuts that are going on here that I wasn't paying enough attention to. So when black plays this, and I connect here, which is a mistake, black lets me live. I think this probably just ends the game on the spot.
I think if he went here, I would have been in trouble, no? I realized that after. If he played L7, I connect, he cuts. But here, we get to connect. So that was a big whoopsie.
But I missed it, he missed it, and we go and connect it up here. And he's now going to run out. And we cap him, we attach and block him off here. I continue to push through, and this is me just building, continue to build up this area. It's my obvious win condition. I do take this cut, and then go and get these. This captures these two stones, just to make sure I'm 100% alive and everything is fine. And I do capture those two stones. And so we kind of do our thing for a little bit. We're kind of getting into end gamey stuff here, and I won't go over too much because I'll be getting into this into review. I just want to show how the rest of the game goes. We do this monkey jump, and then play here to further reduce instead of playing something larger like L18. And we continue on our merry way. I do end up losing this game, though I do find a fun little Tsuji that we might as well show, because it's rare for me to actually find them. Is right here. I'd been eyeing G11, and so I threw in Atari, and now this cuts off the two stones.
Did I find something, guys? I mean, even if I lose, there's a small victory here.
So at least we found this, this cute little Tsuji. It was not enough. I ended up losing by, I believe, either 3.5 or 4.5 points. So it was a close game, but black did get there. So let's rewind this now and go over some things I learned from this, how to more properly apply the things that I'm trying to work on. And so first and foremost, we get to here. And so while here it's probably proper to just jump out and get a base here, I'm still not against this Tanuki from the standpoint of being willing to let this stay weak, and and deal with that challenge later. So this is a better move, but I'm not too upset with the Tanuki. And then, but when we come back, I really, here is a big pivotal point for me, right? So I had been eyeing S12 as a pretty obvious move, but it felt a little too passive, right? It's a second line move. He can potentially start surrounding me. But when we're looking at this from a strength standpoint, a move like S12 just makes the white group completely alive, and it's very strong now, right? So from a strength perspective, that's very good, and it's a reasonable number of points, right? If we're looking at saving these stones and capturing this versus letting him get that, it's potentially a 15-point swing, which isn't huge early in the game, but when you couple that with now we're strong, it's the only move to play, right? It gets you the points and it gets us the strength. But I decided to jump out instead, and then he jumps out as well. And other than T7, which that masterful move that I played later, K17 is probably my next least favorite move, because this is me still going back to, okay, we're just going to play our big territory moves, right? That's the only purpose this stone serves, is to help develop this territory over here. And that's not what we need to be looking at. We really just need to be looking at the strength of this, because we are getting at the point now where the cut is going to become too problematic. So I needed to not do this, and yeah, it's the same move of just taking this. But even if there wasn't a move like this, I need to be getting away from just these big territorial moves like this. And that's, again, not saying that the territory style is wrong, but I need to be working on my other abilities, looking at strengths and weaknesses and cuts and whatnot. And so here we continue to jump out, and it's getting to the point where this connection really needs to get made. But it's funny, this can happen in our games. I am purposely leaving this cut there for him to take it, and I think I'm tricking him, and he's like, oh, white doesn't think that cut's important, so I guess that cut's not important, and so we don't take it for a real long time, right? And which is kind of comical looking back at it, because it is just a huge move. Here I didn't want to, so I obviously considered the Hane. I didn't want there to be forcing moves against this weak group, which is why I didn't Hane here. But it's really not that big of a deal, because getting cut doesn't really matter. It'll strengthen our corner, right? So this is just fine. There's nothing wrong with taking this Hane. It's preferred. So this was me kind of misjudging the strength situation here. Either way, him jumping in. So yeah, we get through this weirdness, and there isn't too much to say about this from what I'm looking at in terms of protecting cuts and staying strong from a strength standpoint. This is fine. Black potentially got a few more points than he should have gotten out of this, but it's not the end of the world. Here, though, we kind of missed the mark yet again, because this was just a misread, right? So if I don't know, let's say we just play some kind of pass move, right? I was concerned about this cut because we've got both of these cuts, but nothing works, right? Even if we just connect, we've just got a ladder, right? That's pretty easy to read. I don't know why I would miss something like that, all right? And so it's a little frustrating that I missed that and spent a move on this. But the opponents, the guys that I'm playing, they struggle just as much as I do, and so sometimes they answer these moves, right? And then I played this as a way to threaten this, but it doesn't actually really do much, right? So if black it doesn't really do anything. The move just isn't needed, right? I was concerned that black could get 015 and Sente, but like it's such a small move that it doesn't matter. And I just need to be snooking here, or connecting, right? The theme here is we should be connecting this at any opportunity. But either way, so we finally turn on this plan, which during game I thought was nice and clever. It's like, I'll attach, I'll play light, and then I'll connect here and go after those stones. And it's a reasonable approach, but black could have punished a little more, right? And taken a larger corner. But there are still things we can do here. We can descend and then and build strength here. And this still isn't terrible, right? Fortunately for me, my opponent just connected, so this plan worked exactly as I needed it to, and I finally connect, like 20 moves after I probably should have, and black strengthens here. So at this point, this is probably enough of a success, and we should probably just look at something like looking at this peep and seeing how black wants to handle stuff like this. So this kick, it doesn't really do what we want it to do, because it's going to strengthen black, which is, if we're trying to attack it, strengthening it doesn't really help. And then we're going to get in this silly like running fight that doesn't really serve any purpose. So I decide to block, but I really should just Tanuki from this. And if black wants to spend more moves getting that, so be it. But my plan was to attack these stones, and so that is what I was going for. Same thing. This connection just is no longer needed, right? We can let this go for larger stuff. We can do something like this, right, where black is eventually going to have to connect and gote, and then we get this wall, and then we can eventually start using, these central stones and these two walls to really get a good moyo going. But I was too hell-bent on trying to go after this group. So we run out a little bit, and then here it's worth noting that this works, right? It'll end up being the nose to Suji. So I could have considered this. I did spend time on this move and decided that connecting was good enough. And then we get out here, but then we let black get this move, which is pretty big. And then I kind of foolishly continue to try to surround this. And so to flip the script a little bit, this is a good example of using weaknesses to your favor. If we're black here, we can play a huge move like this and challenge white and go, are you really going to kill this? Are you really going to profit enough from this to counteract how much damage D10 just did? So this is kind of when I talk about leaving weaknesses behind for as a strategic means, this is what I'm talking about. Black could have done it here, and so I should have recognized that, since this is something that I'm trying to do in my own game, that this gives black a good opportunity to just ask me to prove it, right? So he plays this, strengthens him, threatens to connect under, and we do block. We do block the large move and then take this exchange. And so here, once we extend, I need to be, focusing on cuts, right? We need to acknowledge that this cut's already there. And, obviously there's some stuff with cuts going on here, which was the more focal point. And so I answered. But I have to be careful, because I said, originally I said that I could play this move here because of the strength of this wall. But if black starts cutting through and takes that path away, then we do have to start worrying more about these cuts, which rears its ugly head later. But it didn't have to. Here I should have simply attached, fix the cut and block what we've now invested in, right? If I'm going to play these moves to try to get this territory, I should follow up on that investment. Instead, I play this masterful first line move, which breaks all sorts of rules, and now black gets good momentum to start playing, good shape moves that get him out. And this is an interesting point in the game, because when I had this game reviewed yesterday, we were discussing, potential things that we could have done here, right? So let's back it up and acknowledge that T7 is a pretty terrible move. But I played it with a purpose, right? And that purpose was to continue trying to attack this group. And so now we do this, black plays here, and now all of a sudden I start playing like these really timid moves that are just kind of me trying to get alive, right? If you look at it, this is it just looks like white attempting to get life as opposed to an attack. But that's not consistent with what T7 was trying to do. So if we're going to play T7, we might as well follow it up with, a more fight inducing move. And so we discussed the merit of playing something like O11, which is a difficult move to answer, right? This really turns on the, okay, no, we're fighting about something here. And so I need to start considering moves like this. Typically my play is pretty timid, and I want to get more into being comfortable with fights. And so I guess I'll transition into, a little discussion about my current play style and something that I'm trying to work on a little bit. It's very clear to me looking back at, my last, like forever amount of games, that I'm very averse to big game deciding fights. I typically like playing calm and getting the game to counting and just hopefully winning by having more territory than my opponent, versus getting in big fights and seeing who wins the fight. They win the game that way. But when you look at strong players, watch a lot of all the same streamers that we watch, a lot of their games don't make it to counting because they are totally comfortable starting a big fight and letting that determine who wins the game. And I think from like a psychological standpoint, it's tougher for me to push the resign button on move 120 because I lost a fight, versus slogging it out for an hour and a half and at the end losing by 6 points for whatever reason. I consider that the loss that goes to ending as not as bad as if you just blew a fight and lost. And I really need to reconsider that and be more comfortable with starting big fights in my games. Not going all crazy and just starting fights just for fight's sake, but not backing off when opportunities are there, and being comfortable with losing that way and it still being the same thing as a normal loss. So that's one thing that I'm, a big takeaway from my play in general recently. And this is an example of it. Maybe this isn't the best move. Maybe this doesn't work. Maybe it does nothing and I lose the game because of it. But it still, shows some fighting spirit, which is something I simply need to work on. So anyway, moving on to get to some more interesting bits on this one. So I discussed this cut earlier, right? Now that he's starting to cut this off, I probably need to respect it a little more and play something up here as opposed to just blocking. So we've got to be careful now that he's played this, because it makes this cut a lot stronger. And while I had a better answer with something like this, that still makes it trickier than if I had just done something strong. In this situation, if he tries to cut, we can do this drive and then potentially cut this off, right? So there are options there. This might not work, but either way, just connecting here leaves this cut open again. This completely breaks the game open. I needed to recognize that this cut was there, right? We've got all these shapes that can be cut, especially when we get stones on the other side. And I just wasn't being mindful enough of that. So I got fortunate in that I was able to connect up. And then here, honestly, I still felt like I was doing okay. It's still a pretty close game here. A few small mistakes here or there could shift this in either direction. So getting to the next interesting bit is when black cuts here. Getting back to being too passive, this is just too passive of an answer, right? At a minimum, let's at least Atari him this way. And this seems minor. But this move here it causes more issues than we need it to. So you know, I need to be, considering the options. I can also just consider connecting and asking black, what are you going to do, right? Because he doesn't actually have a great follow up here. And instead, I just saw this. I was like, oh no, it's just a threat. I need to answer it. And so I was a little timid with that as well. And then we took the monkey jump. And it's interesting because later on in the game I'm going to come back to this monkey jump. But we take the monkey jump, and then I play this move, which I'm not terribly happy with. I think this might have been, in a game that comes down to a few points and is coming down to end game, this might be, the miss that gets us there, right? Because something like L18 is just larger here, right? What am I afraid of? This, in this situation, we still do this, and black doesn't get much here, right? He doesn't want this in Gote. So this really wasn't a big move, and I'm a little frustrated at that one. There were certainly larger moves on this board, like G11. But anyway, moving on, we block this off, and black gets this 1-2 punch, which is just huge end game. And then here, this is where I said I was going to circle back to this monkey jump. So I misread this, but I was looking at if he does something like this, we can start getting an attack on this group here. And there's a lot of Aji with something like this, right? If he captures, he's gonna die. And if he comes out, we now have something like this where even if he captures, he can't come back. And so we're able to connect under. So there's a lot going on here. Unfortunately, he had this move, which I missed in my reading. But it's interesting to point out that if these stones weren't here, which were all answers to the monkey jump, then this move has a lot more teeth to it. So coming back to when I played the monkey jump, if instead here I attached, then this becomes a lot tougher for black because he doesn't have the leverage of these stones. And I can even play something like L2, which just threatens a lot more scary stuff for black. And this is something I hadn't considered. It got pointed out during review, but it's an interesting thing to consider with monkey jumps is that if there is some Aji in here, the monkey jump can be Aji Keshi. So we get back to these big endgame moves, and so my failed attempt here, and that's okay. But at least I got it in Sente, I guess. And then this move, and there's I guess I'll end this video on a really interesting little Tsuji that I would have never found, that AI had to show me. But once this stone is here, there's a very interesting thing that gets turned on because there are some cuts here, right? And we should be focusing on cuts. And it's worth pointing out, I was deep in Bayomi at this point in time, and like an hour and a half into this game, so I was tired, but also I was not paying any attention to over here. But after we go through this, we have this interesting cut, and then he blocks, and we have this cut, and he blocks, and now we have this ko that just completely breaks the game open if white wins this. And it's so huge that black, black gets to start, but he probably has to give us whatever co-threat we want because it's just too big. But we've got pretty big co-threats, right? But now, does black have a co-threat big enough for this? That's tough. So this was an interesting little thing at the end that could have won me the game. This is tough for me to find something like that. But if you pay attention to cuts and whatnot, this is stuff that you can see. So anyway, this is how this game ended, and black ended up winning by 3.5 points. So it was a close game, and there were certainly opportunities for both of us to make it not a close game, which is true for pretty much all of our games. So my takeaways here, I need to really really buckle down on focusing on strength versus territory, especially early in the game when those challenges arise. I need to continue working on cuts, right? I'm doing more Sumego these days to try to strengthen that up because it's an obvious weakness of mine. And then as part of that, not being so unwilling to start big fights, and because that'll certainly get me more practice with analyzing cuts, because cuts pretty much dominate a lot of fights. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this game. It was an interesting one. So until next time, thanks for coming out for another ride in the Struggle Bus on this Not Another Road to One Dan series, and I'll see you guys next time.